too fun. Too much.
Oh, welcome to the first edition of Between Two Wheels.
This, Truman, is where we're going to answer some questions from our viewers, some comments that were left on the YouTube, specifically of the wheel build videos.
Excellent questions. So let's jump into the first one. Thank you for an interesting and informative video. On a cross 3 pattern, why do you go under the third spoke? What they're talking about here is what we refer to as an interlace.
What it is, and then why do it or why not. Now you check out the white spoke, for example, over the blue, under the blue.
Under the blue.
Under
the blue, in the video we say over, over, under. That under is the interlace.
Yes,
It's
but don't
the
they?
two spokes make contact
They
and
touch.
actually bend.
Isn't that a problem?
Isn't it? It's a point load. It's a little bit of an area where something could potentially happen maybe. There is a theory behind why it exists. Friends who share a load can carry more load.
Well, let's also show them a wheel that is not interlaced.
Yeah. So, Calvin, what, in your opinion, what is the benefit of the interlace?
There's many things in the bike industry that are very important. This is one of them, and it's a very important thing. It gives mechanics something to argue about. Truman, I think you're mistaken. I would never, ever do it that way. I've always done it my way.
That's exactly it. So this is something that has been around for a very long time.
Oh, yeah.
And it has been argued about for a very long time.
Yeah.
What does it do? What are the benefits of it? What happens if you don't have it?
Yeah.
We tend to not believe that it's important. I
Right.
would say that.
I interlace a lot. I was taught that way. That's fine. The interlacing, I feel, is really not important. It's okay if you do it. There are times I would not do it. There are some cases that it is not so good. When you have a low count wheel, for example, this is a 2-cross, crossing once, twice, over and under, it puts a kink. It puts not just a slight bend or a touching, but a kink in that spoke. I would not suggest interlacing.
So 3-cross, 4 crosses are where you're typically going to see that interlace. It can be said that as the spoke at the very bottom detensions, that at that interlace, it will keep more tension on that detensioned spoke, so that adds more strength and integrity to the wheel.
That's another excellent thing to bring up when you're arguing, because it's really hard to prove. And of course,
Very hard
to prove. Another aspect is it makes it stiffer. It's as if it's a really high flange hub. That makes it so much stiffer. I don't believe that, not for a millisecond. One thing I do like, potentially, is depending on how you interlace it, it helps flatten that side to prevent that pulley from ticking and entering and striking these spokes. If we can move them in a little bit, that's a good thing, especially on those pulleys where maybe the limit screw is
A little loose.
too loose. Oh yeah, we've never seen that before.
What we're seeing a lot now is the rims are very strong. The spoke technology's come a long ways. Hubs have really great geometry. Non-interlacing, the wheels last as long or longer than an interlaced wheel. And there's really no downside to not interlacing.
Right. Follow the data, and we're really not seeing anything.
Yeah.
One last comment before we move on. He's talking about movement here. He's seeing fretting and movement. That's a good point. If you are seeing any kind of significant movement there, your tension is probably too low. It really shouldn't, or ticking, you'll hear as they separate at the bottom and tick against each other.
Kink, 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 kink,
Yeah.
kink, kink.
Crank up that tension. But
Especially on painted spokes, you'll potentially hear that.
yes.
Let's go on to the next topic here. What do we got, Calvin?
Well, thanks. Interesting, fun video. Now, I've always interlaced my spokes, and the default is 2-cross. Related to our next one, when to use 2-cross or 3-cross patterns, what's the optimal pattern, and then what alterations would there be for a 2-cross or 3-cross over a 3rd cross? Let's take that one last?
There are a lot of comments on that video about like, well, in this case, you guys did a 3-cross. What about how do I do a 1-cross? How do I do a 2-cross? How do I do a 4-cross? Well, the process is the exact same as we walk through in the video, except for when we go over, over, under, you just either over, 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 under if you're a 4-cross, or over, over, and then to the rim if you're a 2-cross, or just over 1, and that's a 1-cross.
Or
No cross, radial.
yeah.
You know, when you're putting in your sets of spokes, everything is the same. You drop your first spoke in, you key it up, then you move on. Everything else is identical. You cross one less or one more, and then when you go lower, should not interlace.
But before you get to that point, there's a very important aspect before we even lace it, getting the spokes. If I go a radial, see that? It's going to be a shorter spoke. So as I go 2-cross, 3-cross, 4-cross, it gets longer, longer. You're going further away from the rim. So the first thing to begin with, the 1-cross or 2-cross, put that in the spoke calculator. It's a different spoke length. Once you pick your spoke length, you're stuck.
You can't go and relace your
Yep.
3-cross into a 2-cross because your spoke length is going to be incorrect.
Yeah.
What is the benefit of going to let's go to the extremes here. Let's go to a radial.
Radial is slightly shorter spoke, and radial is a horrible decision in a disc brake.
Horrible for disc brakes or
Or rear wheels. Well, there is a load from the hub, twisting of the hub. So the rim brakes, we have braking up here at the rim, tires slowing down here, that load's transmitted through the hoop. But on a disc brake or pedaling here, we're twisting, putting a torsional load, a twisting load here. You don't want radial.
no, you don't want a radial. You want that tangential angle so that the hub can basically pull the rim along. Or in the case of slowing down, the hub can slow that rim down, which brings up an interesting point. What is the major force in a wheel?
Right, that's right. So again, rim braking, it is your legs, your mighty legs going up a hill. Going down a fast downhill on the rim, you're not loading that hub.
Nope.
On your bike, any disc bike, you can stop. You can think of it this way. You can be at a stop sign, start as fast as you can and get to some speed.
Let's say 20 miles an hour. You can get to 20 miles an hour, 10 seconds, whatever. I don't know how fast you are. But going from 20 to 0, you can do in a couple, 3 seconds.
That's right. The energy with is the same, but it's packed into a short amount of time, a lot more load in braking. Yep. Now, we talked about 1-cross, 2-cross. We're going to go the other way. Let's show them an old one, 4-cross. Actually, the most efficient in an engineering sense is the 4-cross. This is a 36-hole wheel, and we have a pulling, what's called a pulling spoke here. As we twist and pedal, this is our pulling spoke because it's at 90 degrees. The vector is at 90 degrees from our load. That makes the most sense. And it's such a good, important thing. You never, ever see this anymore.
Nobody laces 4-cross anymore.
And nobody cares.
36-hole, not a very common touring.
Right.
32, 28, or fewer as you get into the more aerodynamic,
Right.
lightweight wheels.
Across, 4-cross. You just don't see it. It didn't really help. So 3-cross, the most common.
All right, yeah, starting here, over, under. We're not quite 90 degrees, but it's pretty close. So you're going to have a nice tangent to transfer a lot of load.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to most of the questions, it's what if I want to build a 2-cross wheel? The process is the same. Once you get to the point in the video where we start going over, under, you will just go, if you want to do a 2-cross, which is probably the next most popular spoke lacing pattern, you're just going to either go over, and then to the rim, or you're going to go over, under, and onto the rim. All right, here's one fun one. Bruce, he asked, can you help explain if drive side outboard leading or trailing plays a role in the quality of the build?
Yeah.
Or, great video, super useful, head in, shoulder out trailing, spokes and drive side. But in this video, it shows the other way. So what he's talking about is, so we haven't really covered leading and trailing spokes, but Shimano, a very large company most of us are familiar with, they do have a spec for lacing, especially disc brake wheels. And they want it to be their way.
Right, this is not their way.
This is not.
This is not their way. So, yeah, real interesting question. And also, when you're done with this video, go check out the Sea Otter video where we go around and ask different professionals their viewing of interlacing and things. Anyway, part of that is why are they doing that? This pattern is done, it's a quick, fast pattern. It's done in sets of 4. If you follow the system that Truman showed you, you drop 4, they're laced in. You drop another 4, they're laced in. Another 4, boom, 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 boom. It's great, right? 32, 36, 2 cross, 3 cross, 1 cross. That's fast. It ends up like this. This spoke here, the blue one, is mirrored here by the red one.
Yep.
Okay.
So the blue and the red are trailing spokes. So this is forward, this is backwards. They are trailing. The white and the gold are leading spokes. They're going forward.
What's the opposite of going forward, Truman?
Slowing
Slow
down.
Now we grab the rotor here, and now what we just talked about, leading and trailing, put it on its head.
Yep. So when you're propelling yourself forward, you're pulling on these trailing spokes. When you're holding this and you're slowing this down, you're pulling the rim back with the leading spokes. And so that's the system of going and slowing.
Pedaling, we can actually show this. The blue spoke goes up a bit in tension. White one goes down a bit in tension. Braking.
That is exaggerated.
It's the
even
opposite.
More.
It's going to be the opposite there. All right, so
opposite, but with more force.
Yes,
so they're going to
yes,
detension more or increase in tension more.
Now let's see if we can explain the Shimano way.
The Shimano way,
which can work.
Which
Absolutely.
definitely, they all work. This is a very versatile spoke lacing pattern, which we taught you. This is a little bit more complicated and harder to do. It's just because you have to get the spokes in this way is more difficult.
It's going to be a little more spoke bending.
It's easier to learn on that, and then maybe potentially down the road move to something like this. And then, try and feel the difference.
See what you think. So here we have, it's the same. This side, here's our drive side. We're pulling this way. Here's our elbow, and there's the head. There's the elbows inside. But the disc side, not the same.
Yep. So we talked first about the trailing spokes last time, and both of them were heads out, so they were both on the inside. The red and the blue were on the inside. Here, the trailing spokes, the drive side is on the outside, the non-drive side is on the inside. And so that means the leading spokes on the drive side, the leading spoke is on the inside. On the non-drive side, or the braking side, that leading spoke is on the outside. So, what are some of the goals here, Cal?
That's a fun thing. Potentially, it could be one argument is made. In the braking area, you get more bracing of that spoke against the hub. It's better bracing for that elbow. The J-band is braced as we're braking.
So you're trying to hold on to this wheel's going forward, your brace is...
And opposing that.
This spoke head here has a lot of brace on the hub flange itself.
And that's really going to help it set out there in the wild.
It might help,
Yeah.
So under braking, it will actually, when you do this, there's another thought is that it will pull this side of spoke, the drive side spokes, in a little bit. And that will prevent the spoke from hitting your derailleur.
Containment is the word here.
We're going to call it containment.
It flattens the spokes in that area. Over here we have a derailleur and pulleys, but on that side, caliper.
You got the caliper on this side.
Yep. So you're going to get a little more clearance potentially from, or it's something fun to do.
There are very few major companies that agree on a lacing pattern.
That's right.
So to us, that kind of means there's not a ton of meaning behind this. It's very subtle differences. This lacing pattern will work for almost everybody out there. there's just very, 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 very few people that would ever even notice the feeling between the two different
Right.
lacing
And
patterns.
one thing you have to do, everyone out there, you have to do this, Truman, I have to do this. Connect the hub to the rim. Done. Man, the
Yeah.
last one for this between the wheels
Yeah.
is also a fun one.
Very fun. This one's
Yeah.
very, very fun. And we've had, more than one comment on it.
Yep. What our stance on spoke prep and the different ways to treat where the nipple spoke engage.
So people have been building bicycle wheels for over 100 years now. One of the strongest structures out there, tensegrity structure. So there's been a lot of different ways and a lot of different thoughts about where the spoke enters the nipple. What do you put onto that spoke to prep that thread so that it doesn't seize in place, that it has lubrication so you can turn it, but it also has a mild hold on it so that during a detensioning cycle, that it doesn't tend to unscrew itself. So those are the major goals of a spoke prep.
In the video, we showed, good thing, lube. Any kind of oil, it's a chain, it's a CL1 or other chain lubrications, a lighter oil, it gets into the threads. Now, what's going on here? Yes, it lubricates, helps pull it up. We are saying pull it tight, that keeps the tension.
And if you have good tension, you will not start to unthread itself.
Exactly, exactly. So, but there are some other options. Well, what's one that's not a good option? Nothing. Completely clean and dry.
Nothing on there is gonna start badly and probably end badly.
Yeah.
It's just not gonna go well for you.
Now, you're turning at the wrench. Turning the wrench is going to feel this is really hard to turn because everything's so dry, but you're not transmitting the effort of turning the wrench to the pull on the spoke.
You might even roll that nipple with the wrench because it's so hard to turn because of the lack of lubrication.
Yeah, a
It's
lot
gonna start to
of galling going on. So what are some other fun things?
Well, there's two classics out there.
Yeah.
One of them created by the beeswax. That's one that was fairly common. You can put it on there, it's gonna act as a lubrication, but it's kind of a semi-solid. So it's gonna basically kind of get hard and congeal over time. One of the other classics is boiled linseed oil.
What's nice about this, this is pretty, let's look at this, the lid and the top here. So in some time, what gets crusty? Look.
So this is very much a thin liquid in here right now.
For your building.
Almost like motor oil kind of texture. When you put it on your spokes, then you let it sit for 6 days, 2 hours, and 13 seconds. And then it will kind of basically start to get a little firmer, and then you start building your wheel.
Yeah. And in a month or 2 months or a year, it's crusty.
Yeah.
It is holding.
And that's the goal. So when you build it, it acts as a lubricant. And then over time, it congeals and then it will hold, basically like lock the threads in place.
Yeah.
But once you break it free, it'll allow that to happen and then it'll recongeal in place.
Right.
So it'll theoretically allow adjustments down the road.
A little more modern and very popular in some circles. This is a DT Swiss spoke freeze product. It's a very thin, penetrating spoke freeze. I wouldn't call this wheel prep.
This is because
I had a mechanic do this once that was under me. His initials are Dave. He lubricated the nipples with this and started to build the wheel and did not finish it because it locked him everything and didn't work out. Build the wheel, oil them. This is the last thing you use as a supplement. It's a vitamin supplement. It's not the meal.
Yeah, this is very thin, so
It's got a wick.
Oh, it is the wicking. This is a wicking thread locker. So this, you put it in there, it will wick into the thread because it's very thin. It will get in there, and then the absence of air inside of there will start to harden this up,
Dry it up.
and it will lock those nipples in place.
But yeah, when we say lock, sometimes if you used it solo, it truly is locked, but it gives a lot of resistance.
Yep. Basically locks that. basically holds it in place so it's very hard for the nipples to unthread.
And there's other things out there, I'm sure there are, and I'm sure in the comments. I bet we're going to hear some things. Those are just a few of the questions from the slew of pages and pages we had on the wheel build.
Leave a comment below with a question or comment about a different aspect of wheels or anything bike related, and maybe we'll talk about that one on the next episode of
Between Two Wheels. Goodbye.